The only way to get rid of temptation is to yield to it. Now, I don't know about you, but this isn't a standpoint I've heard often, if ever. However, this belief basically drives the plot of the book I'm going to be talking about today, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. My name's Tony, and I'm a page at the Nanuet Public Library, and this is my first ever book talk, so welcome. This title was Wilde's one and only novel, published in 1890 in Lippincott's magazine. It was condemned by the British press as vulgar, unclean, poisonous, and discreditable, and was even censored. However, the uncensored version is in circulation now and is available to read. Now, a lot of shocking twists happen in this story, so I'm not going to share too many details. The book begins in the studio of artist Basil Hallward. He and his friend, Lord Henry Wotton, are chatting away when the topic of Dorian Gray comes up. Basil describes the incredible impact that the handsome Dorian has had on him, and confides in Henry that he is working on his first painting yet, a portrait of the young man. Basil is protective of Dorian and doesn't want Henry to meet him because he feels that his relationship with Dorian is special and meaningful and should be kept just between the two of them. Despite this fact, Henry and Dorian meet and engage in a conversation that most people would find, frankly, abhorrent. Henry tells of the glories of hedonism, surface-level beauty, and self-indulgence. Dorian takes these ideas to heart. However, once he sees Basil's finished portrait, he is overcome by grief and terror. If he won't be young and beautiful forever, then what's even the point of living? He wishes that instead of aging himself, the portrait could take his age and bear the weight of his sins. He takes it home and keeps it for himself. After an unfortunate series of events which I will not spoil, Dorian realizes that his wish came true and the portrait of him will now become ugly instead of he himself. His newfound hedonistic lifestyle leads to him spiraling out of control. I can proudly say that this is one of my favorite books of all time. There are many main ideas that are presented throughout the story, but to me, the one of the most important ones is that a life of incessant self-indulgence and manipulation often leads to one's demise. This idea has been going on since literally the beginning of humanity if we're talking biblical stories. The story of Adam and Eve is a perfect example of the pitfalls of hedonism and intemperance. Also, we have Pandora's box, which is another example of what can happen if you think about yourself too much. Another important theme of this novel is the fact that beauty can only get one so far. Throughout history, we always see the emphasis that the general public places on beauty, like in the Victorian era when pale skin was the ideal and people went to great lengths to achieve that. Now, with immediate access to pretty much any information we want, we see the alleged importance of beauty more than ever, as evident by constant skin cream and hair product advertisements and the like. Thus, we see the continuity in this novel, making it a timeless classic, part of the Western canon, if you will. The way that Oscar Wilde goes about presenting this idea is unorthodox and frankly before its time. I've read a lot of books, but I've never read one that captures such a prevalent idea in such an unsettling way. Also, the characters are complex and interesting in their own ways. Lord Henry Wotton is regarded as the main antagonist of the novel, but I think that Dorian Gray could be regarded as a villain as well. There are some movie adaptations that present him as a hero, but I strongly disagree with this. Despite the influence he received from Henry, he still chose to sell his soul, so to speak, in order to be granted eternal beauty. Again, I don't want to spoil the series events that occur, but I encourage you to check out the story for yourself and see if you agree with me. I once heard Dorian be described as both a victim and a villain, which I would say is quite an accurate representation for the most part. Despite this fact, he's still my favorite character because of his complexity and the fact that he's in a constant struggle with himself. There's really only 7 main characters throughout the book, and Wilde uses each one to his advantage to further the plot, and does a masterful job at it. I don't want to go into detail about each and every one of the characters because I don't want to take away from the actual experience of reading the novel, but trust me, each character has their own unique ideas that seemed pretty foreign to me when I read it. Overall, I give this book a 5 out of 5. Like I said, it's one of my top favorite books, and I don't anticipate that changing. I highly recommend you check it out. It's super easy to access. You can check it out virtually on Hoopla or Libby, or you can just search up the Picture of Dorian Gray PDF on Google and read it that way. Thanks so much for tuning into my book talk. My name's Tony. Keep up with the rest of our social media. Have a nice day, and stay healthy.